Good morning. It is 7:59 a.m. on Monday, November 15th, 2021. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I actually went back to bed for just a little bit. Like I gave myself 1 extra hour of sleep just because I was, just didn't feel very rested this morning for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Um, I feel kind of more or less okay otherwise. Just need some caffeine, maybe. Dehydrated or something. But, that's how it goes sometimes. I had a pretty good weekend. I played a bunch more Deathloop yesterday, and it's finally really clicking for me. And I don't know. I think maybe I just needed to play it enough to really get my first person shooter control muscles back into shape or something like that, just because it had been a while. Like I think last time I talked about it, that's what I was saying, is like I was having a little trouble getting back into that mode. And so now that I'm not fighting that as much, I'm able to enjoy more of what the game is offering, which is pretty neat, really. If you're not familiar with the premise, it's a time loop game with first person shooter mechanics where the basic idea is that a bunch of super science weirdos on an island have set up this time loop, and that your character is trying to break out of the time loop, but he has amnesia. There's some story stuff that's going on that's weird there, that I'm sure will be revealed by the end, but it's established pretty early on that the only way to break the loop is that these 8, so-called visionaries are need to be all killed within the same loop in order to prevent the loop from restarting and then everyone being back to, So if you kill one of them during the loop, they're dead, but then they just come back the next time the loop restarts. Whereas if you are able to kill all of them in the same loop, then you can do that. But the way the mechanics are set up is that they have spread themselves out over these 4 different regions, and it's impossible to get to each of them individually in the same single loop until you start learning more about the different world and what their individual routines are. So you start to learn things like, okay, well, there's this big party in region D at the end of the day, and this one of the visionaries is the scientist, and he doesn't go to that party because one of his science experiments yielded interesting results. So what you learn is that if earlier in the day you sabotage that experiment, then that guy will instead go to the party, and then he'll be there with some of the other visionaries, so you can get more of them at once, and that sort of thing. But there's it's a little unclear. I think that the only two so part of what's interesting about the time loop is that everybody there, like all of the various individual people, the other people on the island besides these visionaries, understand that there's going to be a time loop, but none of them remember it. So all of them think it's the first one. And so every time you loop, all of these people are talking about how exciting it is for it to be the first day of this new time loop thing that they're going to do. I think that's pretty interesting. But you do have one, yeah. So in any case, I could just go on and on talking about it. But I'm liking it more now, like I said, now that I've kind of got my sea legs back, so to speak. So enjoying that quite a bit. I also have been really enjoying the TV show Succession this season. So I hadn't really been watching it live at all until after, even season 2 was done. And I just heard a lot of people whose opinions I respect talking about how much they love this show. And I was a little perplexed just because it was kind of a weird show. It's like you watch the previews for it or whatever, and it's like, is it a drama? Is it a comedy? And the answer is really that I think it is mostly a comedy pretending to be a drama, where what's happening. So the basic premise is that you've got this huge billionaire family that runs this multimedia empire, but the you know the the patriarch played by Brian Cox is getting a little long in the tooth, and so which of his four children will manage to take his place at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, and them conniving against each other and all of this sort of thing is the basic premise of it. Goodness, excuse me. Um, and it kind of play acts it being a drama, and it does occasionally have drama-like things happening to the characters, but mostly I think the real heart of it is look at these awful people being awful to each other and that sort of thing, but in a very sophisticated, kind of clever way. And yeah, I really like it. But I will even say that I'm liking it even more now in season 3 than I did early on. So, which is not to say, oh, you have to get through season 1 or whatever, but I think part of it is just that it is an unusual show. There's not a lot of shows like it where it most of the time it is acting like what you're watching is supposed to be more serious than I think it's actually intended to be. Part of part of its humor comes from acting extremely self-important, but it can be possible just based on the way our brains are media trained to mistake that self-importance for genuine instead of satirical. But in any case, I like it. And so I'll leave it there and talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.